What's up, YouTubers? It's your girl Shannon from EV and Chill, and today we have with us the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and I'm going to be giving you my first impressions, and we have a little surprise for you at the end, so you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for that. But let's go over the deets of this vehicle. So this is, again, it's the 2022. It is in the SE trim level. It has all-wheel drive, which gives it a range of 256 miles. Now it starts at approximately $48,000. And again, since it is at the base level, it does have a black exterior, and it's going to have a black cloth interior, which we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, let's start on the outside here. Let's go over first impressions. For me, I'm not sure if I love it or if I hate it yet. The more I see it, it's definitely growing on me. To me, Hyundai is kind of bringing in two different vibes. One look I feel like is kind of a throwback, I think maybe to like the 80s. I wasn't around during that time, but I think this was popular then. So the pixel theme, you can see that is consistent throughout the exterior and the interior of the car. So we've got that retro look going on, but to me, we also have this really modern look going on, especially if you look down the body of the vehicle. You can see there are a lot of sharp creases and lines here. For me, I like this look because it kind of reminds me of the sharp creases and lines in my husband's abs. But jumping back up to the front here, I do wish if there was something Hyundai would have done, I wish they would have made this a full light bar. If you get up close, you can kind of see there's a faux light bar look, and even closer, you can kind of see almost some squares, kind of pixel-like, again, being carried throughout that. But another change I wish they would have done would have been with this badge right here. This is huge. I just want to cover it up. Now, I know auto manufacturers need to rep their brand. I'm not hating on that. However, everything about this car is square, rectangular, angular, and then we have this giant oval. I think it would have been a little bit more sophisticated if they had blacked it out, even made it just a little bit smaller. I think that would have fit just a little bit better. But speaking of ovals, let's jump over to circles and let's talk about these wheels and tires here. I don't hate them, but I don't love them. They do fit the Ioniq because, let's face it, the Ioniq, as we're going to see, it's a little bit of a quirky vehicle. The wheels, they look a little bit quirky too. I think something that gets me is that even if you just saw the wheel by itself without the rest of the vehicle, you would automatically know it's an EV. For some reason, I think auto manufacturers need to make EV wheels stand out in some way, not always the best way. Again, I don't hate these wheels. I feel like they kind of fit. But I do think it would have been really cool if they made kind of just a regular wheel, didn't look like it belonged on an EV, looked like it could have passed for a wheel of an ICE vehicle, but they added aero caps. And your wheels could look nice, but then you could throw those aero caps on when you really need efficiency. But let's keep moving down the car because we have a lot to talk about. These handles I am a big fan of. If you put your hand around them, there is like some weight to it. It's pretty hefty. And then we open the door. That is a pretty solid door. But going back to the handles, this is a look that is very common in EVs nowadays. We hit the lock and it goes back into its flush look. So definitely like this, and I think that helps with aerodynamics too. If we unlock it, it pops out, which is a super classy touch, so way to go, Hyundai. And something else to know is that when you put your hand around the door, there are some ridges back here. So I like that addition of added texture. That is really nice. And it is windy. I'm like eating my hair right now. We've owned our Tesla Model 3 for a few years now, and I have to say I love it. But sometimes when I open the doors, even now, it is still a little awkward for me to do. So big fan of these. I don't know if you can see, but peep that little cutie sitting inside the car. But something else I noticed is that when I was looking at it online, I didn't think the Ioniq 5 was going to be as big as it actually is in person. It's a pretty sizable vehicle, and it feels even bigger on the inside. But before we get there, let's go ahead and let's take a look at our booty. We again see that pixel theme is carried on back here in the taillights. Now again, they kind of have this faux bar look. I wish they would have just gone ahead and connected that. But overall, this is a behind I would not mind staring at if I'm sitting in traffic. I think it looks really good. But again, we do have this big chromed out H here. I wish again that was blacked out a little bit smaller. I think that's maybe one of the only pieces of chrome on the vehicle. Moving a little further down, we have the Ioniq 5 here. Now this is in white, and it's kind of the only white that's on the vehicle, I think. So personal preference, I would have preferred this to be in body color. Again, I think it would have like amped up the sophistication a little bit more. But now let's go ahead and hop inside. Let's check out the cargo space. Hey, how'd you get back here before I did? Taking a look at the cargo space back here, you can see that there is an ample amount of room to store a lot. I'd say this is pretty comparable to what we had in our Mustang Mach-E. But something I will say this has in common with the Mustang Mach-E is the fact that there is hardly a sub-trunk. I think if any EV has lock on that, Tesla maximizes the sub-trunk in front compared to all the other vehicles we've seen so far. There is a small one here. You can see just enough space to fit maybe a charging cable, maybe a granola bar in there. Not a ton of space, but jumping back to the rear of the vehicle, something I'm not a fan of is the fact that there is no power liftgate. You can see the button here, so it is available in higher trim levels. For me, having no power liftgate is kind of a big deal, especially considering the fact that this car is starting around 50 Gs. For 50 Gs, I would expect that to be standard on this vehicle, so I'm gonna slip that into Hyundai's suggestion box. But let's go ahead, let's close her up manually, and let's talk about charging. Coming around to the side, we see that pixel theme being carried through, which is kind of a nice touch. And I like the fact that on the key fob, if you hold this button down, that charge port is gonna pop open. Again, we see this pixel area here also, and there is a close button, which is kind of nice also. But let's open her back up. So what's really impressive about this vehicle is its charging capability. This can go from 10% charge to 80% charge in 18 minutes is what Hyundai is saying. That is crazy. That's gonna be way faster than the Mustang Mach-E, which I think had a charging capability of 150 kilowatts. And it's also gonna be way faster than the Tesla. We're definitely gonna have to make a video about that. Also, something to note, when you do buy a new Hyundai, you do get 30 minutes of free charging at Electrify America for 2 years. And if it charges from 10% to 80% in 18 minutes, you should essentially never really have to pay for charging, which is really awesome. But something even better is the fact that this vehicle has vehicle-to-load capability. So basically your vehicle is kind of like a mobile generator. And we saw this put to use a few weeks ago on an episode of The Bachelor. Clayton took the girls to a tailgate and they were able to power their electric grills from the vehicle. Also, side note, what is Clayton doing? He is not making the right choice for his future wife. If you have some comments to add, drop it below. I'd love to chat about it. But back to the car, that is kind of a practical application right there. You can power your grill if you're tailgating. If you're in the woods, you can like inflate your air mattress. At the beach, you can inflate your beach balls. And even more so, if you have an electric vehicle, God forbid it runs out of juice, you could charge your electric vehicle from this vehicle. That is crazy. That is mind-blowing right there. I think it's so cool that cars right now are becoming more than just getting us from point A to point B. They're becoming actually integrated into our lives. So really awesome. However, there is a tiny downside, I think, because Hyundai has been really proud of that vehicle-to-load capability. They've been advertising it everywhere. But to actually do it, you do need to get a $500 adapter. I think if you buy the vehicle, because they've been so excited about it and everything, I feel like that adapter should be included, but it's not. Okay, what is included though is a lot of legroom, so let's hop in the back seat and check it out. As we get in the back, take a look at how wide this door swings open. This is plenty wide enough if you ever need to load in extra groceries. I even tested it out and I was able to fit the car seat back there no problem. It opens so wide, it even fits my wide hips. But let's go ahead and let's look at the legroom. For me, I'm 5'4" and I have the driver's seat in the same position I would normally drive it in. And this is not very scientific, but look at how much legroom I have. That is crazy. Now, headroom wise, I have plenty of room up there also, maybe like this much. My husband, he is 5'10", and he put the driver's seat in his driving position, and he still had ample leg space. I'll have to see if I can find a clip and put it in of him in here. And peep real quickly how the seats move forward and backwards. That is a super awesome touch. However, something to note is the fact that there are no vents back here. So for us, that is a huge deal. And if you are considering this as a family vehicle, that's something for you to consider also. We have a 3-year-old son, and we like him to be heated and cooled. And usually when he's in his car seat, he has a tendency to heat up very quickly. So for us, that is actually a safety concern. I mean, it's awesome that you have a ton of legroom, but if you can't ride at a comfortable temperature, that's an issue for me and my passengers. Higher trim levels of the Ioniq 5 do have vents in the back. But again, Hyundai, this is close to a 50G car, and we can't include vents. That's a little redonkulous. Also, some other things to note while we're back here is that In the base model, there is no glass roof, which is kind of a bummer, again, considering its starting price point. And there are two USB-A ports back here. I find that that's kind of funny considering the fact that we're kind of moving towards USB-C. For me, that's not really a huge deal because I do have plenty of these cables around. And now let's move forward and let's jump to the front because there is a lot going on there. One of the first things I notice when I get in this vehicle is the fact that there are cloth seats. And again, I think my argument would be that for a starting price of nearly 50 G's, it should be leather. Even though it's a base model, the price tag denotes leather. And really, if you look at the competition, I mean, the Mustang Mach-E Premium starts at a similar price point. And with that vehicle, you're getting leather seats, a power liftgate, a glass roof, and probably most importantly, vents in the back. And you get nicer finishes, which we'll talk about in a second. But before we get to finishes, let's talk about a really good thing about this vehicle. This vehicle has awesome visibility. Even though there's no glass roof, the windows are huge, and I think you can see literally everything when you look around. So that is a huge plus. I love that about this vehicle. Take a look at these two screens right here. We've got two 12-inch screens, and they're horizontal, which if you've seen my channel before, you know your girl loves a horizontal screen. But what's even more impressive is the actual software that's inside of these. I think these are probably one of the most responsive screens that we've come across so far in an EV aside from a Tesla. So super touch sensitive software. This is very impressive, especially considering the fact that we just came from a Mustang Mach-E and we were a little bit less than impressed with that software. However, I will say that the Mustang Mach-E, it did have premium finishes, and the Ioniq 5 leaves a little bit more to be desired in that area. I mean, if you take a look here, we've got a lot of hard plastics everywhere you look. Kind of makes it look a little less than sophisticated for its price point, but maybe Hyundai did a trade-off. Maybe they spent less on the finishes and maybe invested more in the software. At least that's what I'm hoping. Now, before we jump back to the screens, I have to show you what's on the end of the screen, and that is this piece right here. And this is actually a magnetic board. Now, for me, I think maybe that's kind of cute. Maybe you can personalize your vehicle, put something cute there. I don't know if it's necessarily practical or functional. If I'm going to put a reminder somewhere, I'm probably just going to put it in my phone. Truthfully, my husband thinks that the magnet is dumb. I think from his perspective, he thinks, why would Hyundai invest so much in this when they should have invested their money in putting vents in the back seat? I have to say, I agree with him there. It is cute, a little bit gimmicky. I'll put a magnet there just for fun because I can, but I wish they would have spent their money elsewhere. Now we're going to go back to the screens again, but first I have to talk to you about the steering wheel. Take a look at this wheel. This right here is normally where auto manufacturers would put their symbol or their logo. There's no giant H here, which for a second I was a little confused by. But then if you take a look at these 4 pixels, this is actually the letter H in Morse code. It's like an H within the pixels. It's kind of like the movie Inception. Sort of. Okay, otherwise, aside from the letter H there, we do kind of have a lot going on the steering wheel. I'm not going to say it's overly cluttered, but it's definitely not as minimal as a Tesla would be. We do have 3 stalks here, which is a lot. The driving stalk is right here. I'm not a huge fan of the placement with it being down here, but you do twist it to get into your different modes, and you do push it in to get into park. But for me, when I drive, it kind of gets covered up by this view. I wish it was in a more visible spot for me. And we do have 2 paddles. These on either side control the regenerative braking. I don't really think a paddle was necessary for that. For me, I think that should have been a button put on the screen. I mean, once you put it in a setting you like, you're probably not going to take it out very often. So I think this was kind of overkill here. And then we do have a button here for the drive modes. Now, my initial inclination, because there are ridges around it, would be to twist it, but it is actually a push button. And while I'm thinking about it, you could actually almost play the game Bop It. Do you remember that game? You could almost play Bop It on the steering wheel. Look at this. We've got to flick it, we've got to pull it, we got to twist it, and then we've got the Bop It. So even though this technically doesn't have a lot of built-in entertainment, you kind of have entertainment right here. Enough of the games though, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about the drive modes, because this is actually really impressive. So I'm going to scroll through some of the drive modes here. You can see we have Eco, Normal, we've got Sport, and there's a snow mode. And that is super awesome considering the fact that this is an EV. Now EVs are really great in the fact that they have instant torque, but sometimes, let's be real, too much instant torque can be kind of a con in the snow. Now real quickly, in relation to the drive modes, let me show you something else I love about this vehicle. Now if I touch this icon right here, the EV icon, it is going to pull up this carpet. So what you can see here is that with your fans on, you have a range of 185 miles. If we were to turn the fence off, our range jumps up to 191 miles, and it does it in every single mode. So if we were to go to normal, you can see the difference there. In sport, it drops to its lowest setting. We'll keep it in eco for now. But I think that is a super awesome touch. For me, I think it makes me a little bit more mindful. Do I really need my AC on or my heat on? Maybe I can be a little bit more intentional. Instead of blasting the heat, I can turn my heated seats on. Maybe instead of having my air conditioning on level 3, I can get by having it on level 2. Just something I find to be extremely intuitive. I'm very impressed by that. If you struggle with range anxiety, I think that is definitely going to help you there. So excellent touch. And we can't wrap up this video without talking about how well the Ioniq 5 drives. For me, I was honestly pleasantly surprised. It is an extremely smooth ride. It is very quiet on the inside. But what's even more surprising is its adaptive cruise and lane centering capabilities. We've driven a lot of different vehicle brands before, and none of them are actually as good as this right now. Now, I'm not going to say it's on par with Tesla. However, it is better than a lot of the other ones we have driven. So again, very impressed by this vehicle. Overall, even though this vehicle is a little quirky, I think it has a lot to offer and a lot of pleasant surprises. And speaking of surprises, let me share with you our big news. This vehicle, it is not on loan. We're not borrowing it. This vehicle, we just bought it. What? Yes, so this is a new vehicle to our EV collection. We're super excited to have it. I think there's a lot of potential here for some really great videos. If there's a video you'd like to see in particular, drop it in the comments below. We'll see how we can hook you up. Also, while you're down there, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. And while you're down there, give this video a thumbs up too. Well, that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.